Anyone here seen the movie Jaws? Okay, remember this scene? This scene has a scientist, a sheriff, and the mayor. And the scientist says that a mangled woman's body is evidence that there's a shark in the waters. The sheriff says, therefore, the beaches should be closed. And the mayor says, you can't close the beaches. Our town's finances depend on the beaches, and so therefore probably the mangled woman's body is the result of a boating accident. Remember that scene? That's a frightening scene to me. It's the most frightening scene in the movie to me. It's way more frightening than any involving sharks. Why? Because it's a parable illustrating the dynamics of pseudoscience, something that we recognize around us. We see the basic plot happening over and over again. Now, we have a tendency to dismiss pseudoscience because it's stupid, but as this shows, it can be dangerous. Now, Martin Gardner was a great debunker, as Ken Brecker told us Thursday. Debunking pseudoscience is an important part of his work. And you know, I've been here since G4, G8, and I don't think there's enough pseudoscience at these gatherings. There ought to be more. I know it's not as much fun as phi-tops or polyhedral dice or cheating devices or topological felt, but it's really important. There ought to be more here. So what makes pseudoscience so hard to fight? And one of the answers is easy targets. There are many targets that are too easy, that it's the press or scientific illiteracy or bad politicians or what Diane Vaughan calls amoral calculators, people who know the good but do the bad anyway, given to the dark side, or magical thinking. But none of these really are right. The mayor is acting all too rationally. He's not illiterate. He probably went to Harvard or Yale. He lives in town. His friends are the landowners, and closing the beaches is the last thing he wants. When he says that the woman's mangled body is due to a boating accident, he's speaking in code. He's telling his peers that he's rationally protecting their interests. So the reason it's so hard to fight is not that it's irrational or illiterate, but it's so damned rational. So how to fight pseudoscience if it's so rational? In a way, it's like fighting crime. You know, there's a long-range and short-range solution. The long-range solution is to create a utopia in which the conditions that promote crime don't exist. You know, equality and justice. But this can take too long. Short-term solutions are things like jails and punishment and education and fines. The same thing is true for pseudoscience. The long-term solution is to set up a utopia in which this incentive is eliminated. You set up a utopia in which mayors listen to scientists, and scientists learn how to talk to mayors effectively. Short of doing that, what do? Here are 5 short-term strategies, things to introduce into the social context as we have it to change it. One is to use humor. Oh, here are my short-term, sorry, I'm forgetting my slides. Here are my short-term solutions. One is to use humor. Humor is, comedians have an uncanny ability to cut through codes and speak unpleasant truths. Polls show people trust Jon Stewart more than Bloomberg News and The Economist. Why? Because comedians have a license to be transparent, and transparency involves trust. I really like this Doonesbury cartoon, talking to a science denier. I don't oppose science climate policy because it's flawed. I oppose it because I care much more about my short-term economic interests than the future of the damned planet. Hello? I think that's a very effective expose, and there are other ones. There are web pages devoted to climate denier humor. The second method is to figure out how science deniers betray their own values and throw it back in their face. The past year in Washington, politicians introduced bills to forbid incorporating certain scientific results into policy and to disable the peer review process. Now, science is a cornerstone of Western culture, and it's possible to show that by attacking science, these politicians are attacking the very culture they came from. Now, when I first wrote this talk, I was going to compare such politicians to Mideast militants who bulldoze archaeological treasures and smash ancient statues because of their ideologies. Both are absolutely sure of their ideologies and use that certainty to attack mainstream culture, the culture without which they wouldn't exist. And I was going to admit the comparison was over the top, but I thought there was a grain of truth to it. Now, some people told me when I gave a early version of this that after the Paris bombings, that comparison is way out of taste, so I won't do it. But secretly, I still believe it, and I still believe in upcoming debates, you know, for president and senator, you ought to ask the candidates, explain the moral difference between ISIS militants who attack cultural treasures and politicians who attack the scientific process. A third is demand responsibility. A few years ago, it was fashionable for presidential candidates to sign pledges to demonstrate how committed they were to certain positions, to prove their commitment. Okay, let's do that. Let's design pledges for science-denying politicians. And this can be for the left and for the right. Republicans and Democrats do it. Dangerous microbes and viruses are evolution in motion. And if you deny evolution, you deny the value of studying the science behind seeking the cures. So denying evolution is a public health hazard. So let's ask these politicians who say they deny evolution to sign pledges. I pledge that I will not use or let my constituents use any medication that arose from science that depends on evolution or evolutionary theory. Science walks the walk. This tactic says, let's see if you do. Damn, am I out of time already? Parables, let's come up with stories about what happens when you try to wish away sharks. Make it irrational. A quick example suggested to me actually yesterday by Craig Kaplan. You know the practice of certain hotels to omit the number 13 in their elevators, which include this hotel. What would Martin think? What would Martin think about a conference in his honor going to a hotel that doesn't recognize the number 13 because of its supernatural properties? Contribute. Maybe we should boycott those hotels or at least have some kind of protest. Maybe it'll go viral. All of these are examples. Where's 13? Ask them out front. All these are examples of evocation, which is a clever strategy by the ancient Romans. When conquering an enemy, you don't destroy their gods, you appeal to their gods and treat their gods with respect. It's what all these short-term strategies are about, evocation, which is appealing to the gods valued by the science deniers. So these are my short-term strategies. If we practice all of them all the time, it won't eradicate science denial all away, but it will make towns more likely to elect people who want to make the water safe. Thank you.